With that being said, I need more. Because what's up, ghouls? This is Rikk, and you are watching the Pumpkin Patch. Thank you to everyone who continues to watch the Pumpkin Patch. If you have not already, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment on this video, watch previous videos. I do have a lot, and I do this for you guys, the horror punk community, because that's what I'm all about. I enjoy the music, and hopefully kind of getting some topics out there and bridging the gap between the horror crew, as it has been so lovingly called. So just an update on me personally. I recently moved to Anaheim. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks that my fiance and I moved to Anaheim. It's pretty dope up here. I started a new job working with kids with autism, which I've already got experience with. So far, so good. I'm also going to be continuing to play with the Writhers as much as I can from up here. I'll be traveling down to San Diego since I still have family there, and we'll be having a practice next week. We're actually going to be on a podcast. I can leave some more info on that soon, because quite frankly, I don't really know what it's called at the moment. I could probably link it down below if you guys are interested in following that next week. Hit up the Writhers Instagram page. I'm sure we'll be posting about it soon. Today we're going to be talking about October Flame's Handbook for the Recently Deceased. Now, October Flame is a Florida-based horror punk band. I believe they've been around, if I'm not mistaken, for about a year or two now. I've followed them on Facebook, I think about a year now. They came out with a single. The single was called Caution Campers, and then they released that on this album. Surprisingly enough for me, this album was not released on Bandcamp. It was released solely on Spotify and on on Amazon. So the reason I was getting into them was because, as some of you may know, I am doing a horror punk, horror rock zine, and I actually interviewed their singer for it. And then I was doing a little blurb to shout them out for it as well. And I got into the music from this album because I was on Spotify at the moment. So I guess let's just get into it. Overall, here's the skeleton of the album. There's 10 original tracks. Unlike some of the previous albums that I've reviewed, which have some covers, this one's a little bit short, just 10 tracks. Sonically, it sounds like Aiden or AFI meets Argyle Goolsby. That's really the only way that I can describe it. There's something about Mike's voice that sounds very similar to Will Francis to me, from Aiden. Musically, it sounds okay. It's very horror punk, but it also has this vibe in my head of post-hardcore. And for me, that's awesome. That's what I'm really into. I like when those two genres meet. Early post-hardcore bands sort of still had that horror punk flavor to them. They were definitely influenced by the Misfits. They were definitely influenced by goth bands from the 80s. So they had that vibe to them. So they're a little spooky, but not as campy, I guess, as horror punk bands can be. They have a little bit more of the dramatic sides. AFI, I would consider them like some of their stuff as horror punk, but it's definitely not campy like the Misfits were campy. So October's Flame, I think, kind of is sort of in that bridge where the guitar riffs and the sections are almost just taken from post-hardcore bands, at least more so than your typical horror punk bands, in my opinion. With that being said, I need more because I love this album. It is so amazing. 10 tracks is not enough for me, to be honest. Just to give you a few of my thoughts on some of the songs. So it kicks off very, very well. The intro is Handbook for the Recently Deceased, which is the title of the album. Super enticing riff. In the intro, it goes to a mid-tempo like woe section, which most of their songs do. This is very definitively a woe horror punk band, as as I've been calling them, as I've been told they're called. Definitely sort of that Calabrese style woe horror punk, where that's a main part of it, whereas other bands, maybe Blitzkid, doesn't have as many. They have them, but they're not as primary as like bands like Calabrese. So October's Flame definitely has that in their tracks. Very catchy vocal melodies. In this particular song, the intro riff comes back in the bridge, and the whole thing is just really well placed. As I do in other reviews, I'm not going to go through every song, even though I did write some notes on all of them. I'm just going to hit some pivotal points. I think bands like this are cool to me because they have the ability to go through metal and punk a little bit more seamlessly, where it has that brooding sound, but it also kind of has like little heavier riffs. Their track 1946, it starts with a clip, has sort of a metal guitar riff, and some of these vocal parts, this one in particular I wrote down, the vocal intro sounds like there could be screams in the background of what it's saying, like a post-hardcore band would do. And I feel like I could hear those in my head for a lot of these songs, where they could be background screams as well. If they got a guitar player who could do the screams, they could be another post-hardcore horror punk band. And I'd be all about it. Like I said, this one has that spot for the screams to be perfectly placed. And in my head, it already sounds like it. The riff sort of continues throughout, which to me is something that post-hardcore bands do. They have like more riffage versus just chord progressions. Like normal punk stuff will just have that chord, where post-hardcore stuff has more of a riff going through it, and it kind of sustains through the entire song. This particular track is about the town that dreaded sundown, and that's the chant in the song. That's actually what the clip is from as well. And it just sounds great. The mix on this album is phenomenal. There's only a few things that I think I would change within the mix, which I'll get to in a sec. But a lot of the vocals are layered very well. And I think that's really important for a horror punk band to do with chants, or even just a punk band, post-hardcore band, hardcore band, anything like that. It needs a good mix on the chants. Otherwise, they fall flat. And with this album, I don't think they did. I think they hit the nail on the head really well with that. So the fourth track is by far my favorite in the entire album. The whole album is great. This one is my favorite album. It is called Shark Song, and it is about Jaws, and it's fucking awesome. Throughout the entire track, there's like two layers of vocals going with the same words. Like, it's just the same song the whole time for both layers, going throughout, and it just makes for a different layer. It's really interesting that they did it that way. I think the chorus is just super perfect, because it says, I think we need a bigger boat, which is from Jaws, and it's just so like brilliant. And within certain parts of the chorus and the bridges, they have little breaks between the guitar parts and the drums, and like have these little like accessories on guitar going on. And there's a vocal change up on the third line, I think, in the final chorus, where it goes into a solo part, and he says "ahoy," and it's so great. It's campy, but it's so well done that it's not silly. Like, it's not serious, but it's not stupid. It's great, and that's what I love about horror punk, is that if you do it right, it doesn't sound like nonsense. It sounds like it's just a great song. And it's fun. It's fun. I would love to see them live, and I would go bananas seeing this song live. I can't speak any more highly of this one. It's a perfect song in my opinion. The next track is badass too. It's called Nightmare at 2,000 Feet. This is a build up. This one's about the Twilight Zone. That pretty popular episode with Captain Kirk in the airplane, and he sees a monster on the side of the wing, and so this is sort of there's a build up to it. There's some suspense, and so it comes in kind of spooky, and it says like it goes back and forth on the drums. The drums are what I'm particularly listening to on this, because it has this interesting like dun, 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 kind of pacing to it to build it up, and it says there's nothing there, there's something there, there's nothing there, and it just like builds up, and there's a good suspense built up in there. At first I wasn't feeling it, but I was listening to I listened to this album so many times before I did the review. It definitely was one that grew on me. At first, for some reason, I think I wasn't hearing it in a good quality place. I listened to things in the car a lot, so I wasn't sure about it. But once I listened to it in headphones, I appreciated it. Like I said, the atmosphere is created very well and very deliberately. There's also some shorter songs. Spiral Hill is very fast and shorter. This is a good pit song. Excuse me. Not as much to say about it. Like I said, it's just a normal D-beat style. D-beat-ish, like fast-paced punk song compared to the other ones. On to track 8, Caution Campers, is their Friday the 13th track. This is more of I wrote driving bass boo-wop style track. This is their, homage to that sort of 50s style doo-wop, boo-wop, if you will, that horror punk has been built upon, and I think it's great. They have a song right after it that's a little bit more pop punk-esque in the riffage, and I think it's a great juxtaposition for what it's about, because it's kind of poppy, and it's about Michael Myers. It's called Return to Haddonfield, and I just think it's a great juxtaposition, and I think that's another reason why I like horror punk as a whole, because some of the songs can be really poppy and be about, serial murderer or, being dismembered. So it's pretty great. I think my least favorite song on the album is the final song on my track list. It's called Dawn of the Final Day. I think they might call it Dawn of the Dead. I'm not entirely sure why there's a difference. What I wrote down is there's like a AFI-ish bass riff going on. It's a little bit more of a pop punk sounding like mid-tempo song. A lot more woes, like throughout the whole album. This one has woes. I think the reason why it's the weakest song is because it is a little bit lower on energy compared to the rest of the album, and I don't think that was as deliberate as it came across. So, for example, there were certain parts in Nightmare at 2,000 Feet where you could tell it was supposed to be that way, whereas this one, I think it just sort of happened due to the mix. I think that there was this one may have been mixed differently or something. There's something about it that it's a little out of sync in my head or my ear from the rest of the album. But again, as always, it doesn't mean it's a bad song. It's still a really great song. Overall, the whole album is great. I think that the album is awesome because it keeps the broodiness of like that atmospheric, like horror stuff, the vibes like Shadow Windhawk has, certain Calabrese songs where it's like very brooding, but you can tell there's a clear differentiation between horror punk and goth, which I think sometimes they definitely mix, but I think this obviously has more of a horror punk feel to it, whereas some other albums have more of that goth feel to it. Like I said, it is definitely very whoa horror punk, like some of the greats like Calabrese, and that is not a complaint. It is just a fact. And my last note on here is that the album doesn't come off as intricate, but it is very well crafted. So sometimes I don't typically hear it in horror punk, but I think that sometimes bands take themselves too seriously. They write all the virtuoso stuff and do all that, and this one's a little bit more straightforward than that, but it's done really, really well. And obviously it's not, I don't feel like it's overdone sound-wise. Some of you may disagree with me. I think that there's a lot of things on this album that I'd like to hear more of. Like I said, I really appreciate post-hardcore, and I really like the sort of early like horror punk influenced post-hardcore stuff, like bands like Aiden, AFI, things like that. And I feel like in my ear, this band fits in there really well. They might not be going for that, but I could place them with bands like that in my playlist. I'm sure you wouldn't be able to tell. And I want to hear more of that. So like I said, great album. I definitely recommend this one. This was probably one of the better albums in the horror punk genre that came out in 2018, and is definitely a hidden gem because I don't know if many people actually got around to listening to it, because they weren't. 2018 had a lot of good albums, from some of the more popular bands. So I definitely recommend this one. I will leave the links below, and I will leave the Facebook, all that stuff for this band. I really want you guys to check them out. Aside from that, I did want to shout out that I still have a few Batkin horoscope pins left. If any of you are interested, there will be a link below. Right now they are only $5. Hopefully those guys got them over in Mexico and are able to sling them as well, because they are badass. If you are a fan of Danzig era Misfits and All Hallows EP era AFI, then the Horoscopes is definitely a band for you, because they are fucking awesome. And who doesn't need more little pumpkin pins? Who doesn't want to support your boy Rikk? Anyways, so I think this is going to be it. I think this video is turning out to be a little bit longer than I expected, but that is okay. I do have some other planned videos coming up, and potentially another collab with the guys in Undead 13 as well, and my boy Gabriel from the Midnight Chamber. So whenever that happens, because we're all busy people, I hope you guys stick around for it. And again, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share. That would be lovely. And I will see you guys later. As always, this has been Rick Retreat, and you have been watching The Pumpkin Patch.